So are we the last presenters of the day? Are we the last?
Oh,
Okay,
beautiful.
so it's been a long day. I just want to ask everybody just to stand up for a second. Will you guys be willing to do that? Just
Get on
stand
up.
up and stretch your arms. Okay, now we're going to do downward dog. Yeah, it's this conference. I was on the board of directors for about a year and a half. So you guys probably all remember me, maybe. I gave away. My name is Gavin Farrell. We're going to introduce ourselves here. Basically, I think this is the most amazing virtual reality organization. We're the longest running one, as far as I know. It's the most talented group of individuals that I've ever known or worked with. I've worked with a lot of you. And so I've been at Yahoo for 9+ years, and it's always been my goal to kind of get the big corporations to make it, kind of more accessible for people like us to create our content and get it out there and actually make some money behind it. And we're going to talk about a little bit about that. And so, and this is Andrew.
And so some of you may have remembered me from the panel earlier today. My name is Andrew Balfour. I work with Gavin on our ad creative technology team. I head up our global ad innovation efforts over at Yahoo. And so a little bit of context, our ad creative technology team is essentially the internal creative agency for advertisers at Yahoo. And what that means is we design, develop, and deliver ads for all the top brands and agencies in the world. And so what we want to do for you guys today is we want to help set the context of not only why are we here, but why is Yahoo here? And we want to talk about why we really believe that VR is not just poised to stick around, but poised to boom. And I think we all believe that, but I'd like to point to some insights that we've gathered that we can look at in terms of historical trends to show that it's really, really here this time, and I think everybody needs to be prepared who's not in this room who knows it.
Yeah, agreed.
So then we're going to set some context around what Yahoo's doing specifically to help move VR forward for our customers and for the overall industry.
Okay, so this is a slide that we've used in past presentations. It used to be pretty salient about 5 months ago. Now, we don't have to convince this audience how impactful VR is. What I like about this slide, though, is that it kind of shows your big media agencies from online to broadcast television to publication companies, and then they started throwing clay at the wall around 2014. And there wasn't a lot of planning behind it, but everything stuck. And to give you an example, this Facebook post, I'm not sure if someone in the audience did this, I can't remember his name, but it was just a simple 360 time lapse on Times Square of the snow falling during the blizzard, right? It garnered 11 million views in a week, which is just phenomenal. So I think that really started to show kind of like what you could do in the space very easily. And that's when people started getting, VR started getting people's attention at that point. So Goldman Sachs came out with this analyst report. It was like an 18-page PDF report, but the main sticking data point for us was that their prediction was that it was going to become an $80 to $182 billion market by 2025. And we're still on that projection. Now, I'd like to see that more in our pockets than, let's share the love.
Yeah.
And then this is a really fun slide. This is from Eric Hansen. He was just presenting at the New York Times Global VR Summit. So basically, here's another interesting thing. I just showed you a slide where New York Times sent 1.2 Google Cardboard headsets to their subscribers, right? 1.2 million. Only like a year and a half later, they're having a global summit on VR. So they've really put their skin in the game, which is really interesting. And they, a lot of people at that summit thought that their opinion is that VR is really going to be completely disruptive, and not only is it going to disrupt media, but it's actually going to disrupt everything, which is it's fun to think about how that's going to happen.
So I think to put that into context, to talk about disruption and to talk about why VR is poised to boom, well, let's look at the last big media shift that was really disruptive. And so we're going to take a look at what we're going to call the mobile revolution. So for those of you who don't know, Yahoo a few years back acquired a company called Flurry. Is anybody familiar with Flurry and what they do? Okay, so for those of you who don't, which looks like the majority of the room, they're a mobile analytics company. So they basically have their SDK in over 800,000 apps around the world, and when users actually start to use these apps, they pull and collect data based on their behaviors and their habits. So to set the context for what we're about to walk through over the next few minutes. It's going to be very data heavy, so I want you guys to understand where this comes from. Don't fall asleep on me either. These 800,000 apps account for about 2 billion devices on average per month and about 10 billion sessions per day. And a session is any time somebody opens up one of their apps. So I'm going to show you a graph next, and what I want you to understand about is on the left we have volume in terms of sessions. Then on the x-axis we're going to have the year-over-year growth. And what's important to notice is where we start in about 2008 and how the behaviors and habits changed all the way through 2015. So if you take a look over by Gavin, right here on your guys' left, in 2008 we saw roughly probably the iPhone, right, and music was really the main content consumption on the device. And you notice that the adoption and the usage doesn't really pick up until about 2012 when social networking really becomes big on mobile devices. After that, we see this massive pop up to 2015, and we look at what we define as media as the main consumption format for them. And what we're going to define media as is music, entertainment, video, news, content, print, or excuse me, media in the terms of text, and including social messaging as well. So in addition to increased volume in consumption, we saw increased frequency in consumption. So over by Gavin, we see regular users, and over on my side, we see the growth in something called mobile addicts.
So, Andrew, can you tell me what mobile addicts are? I'm kind of scared.
Absolutely. So regular users are someone who uses their phone, opens it up under 16 times a day. Mobile addicts is 60 plus, 60 plus. So who in this room falls into that mobile addicts category? You guys do me a favor, Can you stand up? I want to help put this in context, and everyone get a look around here.
We also want to keep you awake.
Yeah.
You know, graphs have a tendency to knock people out.
Okay, so stay standing for a moment. So these are the mobile addicts, right? To put this into context, in 2014, mobile addicts, if we looked at them as a population of the world, would have been the 8th largest ranked nation with 176 million people. That grew quite a bit in 2015 to number 4, only behind China, India, and the US. So if anybody in here is from Indonesia, Brazil, Pakistan, Nigeria, Bangladesh, or Russia, sorry, mobile addicts are a bit larger than your home countries. So can everyone who was a mobile addict stand back up for me for a second? Sorry, I'm keeping you guys on your feet. Okay, so take a look at these people who identify as mobile addicts, and it's not really what we think of when we think of an addict, right? Yeah, it is. This was before he had his coffee this morning.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we make...
Or as Luke likes to call me, Gavin.
Gavin, yes.
But yeah.
Gavin with his precious.
Yeah.
So what does this tell us? We kind of touched on this earlier today, that content is king. It's less the medium, more the message. So the consumption has really moved to mobile devices, and somebody, I believe it was Sebastian, correct me if I'm wrong, mentioned that they don't think disruption will happen everywhere. And I think I just want to change the definition of disruption a little bit and frame it up through the context of what we saw mobile disrupt, which was traditional broadcast television. So we do think VR will be disruptive, and we think that it's going to look a lot like mobile. And we can see those consumption behaviors around broadcast to mobile, I think, start to mirror VR in the next few years. So this is very complicated. There's a lot to take in here. The main thing to walk away with is this graph on the right, and that's all the major age demographics. And you see that consumption outside of the baby boomers of television has shifted over to mobile devices. So the title of our presentation is Bridging the Advertising Gap. Gavin, what is the gap?
I'm pretty sure the Gap is a retail store where I buy clothes for my children. But actually, the Gap, we see Gap is, it's really the opportunity. And I think that's what we should all look at it as. I think that it's sort of like a philosophy that you should take in mind. Like if you reach into a obstruction, the obstruction is the opportunity.
More specifically, for advertisers, we think the gap is the misalignment and the lack of education around the new medium. And so what we think we need to do as a company and as everybody in this room to help bridge that gap is focus on 3 things. Help build VR content, good content, quality content, I think is most important. Analytics and insights, so we built it, we need to understand it. We need to figure out what it's doing, how people are behaving with it. And then third, we need technology-based platforms to help it deliver at scale. I'll boil that down for you guys a little bit more simply so we can kind of remember it as content, data, and delivery. So now we're going to show you what we've been doing in these 3 areas at Yahoo to help drive this forward.
So we're going to hop in the DeLorean back in Yahoo. This is 2014, I believe, when the Oculus dev kits first started coming out. We were saying, oh, what can we do at Yahoo to create some cool virtual reality experiences? So we first thought of the idea of having a Flickr VR app within the Oculus experience. Now, the Oculus actually took a really long time to hit mainstream market. So we kind of shifted gears and created the Gear VR Flickr app experience. And this is a little bit along the lines of Google. It's user-generated content that you upload to Flickr. It's a curated gallery for now, and you can share your panoramic experiences. They can live in Flickr, and they can also. So we also activated the 360 players within the Flickr, so you can upload your images to Flickr now, and have them both in the Gear VR and on your Flickr account. But advertising is really the bread and butter of Yahoo. So we don't really focus on user-generated content to pay the bills. So we started approaching our advertisers, and in early 2014, Paramount Pictures approached us, and they said, I'm sure you guys have clients like this, where they say, we want a never-before-done experience, and we want it next week, and it should be interactive and on mobile. And so I want a big shout-out to Alexander Jenny and the Color team, because I whipped out Panotour Pro, and I took this asset, which was the only one they had at the time, and I sort of filled in the rest of the poster, extracted the assets, and created this virtual living poster experience. And Paramount Studios, they completely flipped out, and they were like, we want to run this tomorrow, and this is incredible. And we were like, oh, this was just a test. It's not a real ad product at Yahoo, and we have to go through this whole ad policy team, and you have to give us a little bit more time. So we knew it was a valid product at that point. There was just so much excitement behind the studios. So we moved on, and our first big client was JetBlue, and they had a huge ad campaign called Humankinda. And the idea behind that campaign was that you're busy at your work, and you're just tired all day long, sitting at your desk all the time working, but you can take your mobile devices, which is with you at all times, and put on your VR headset and go somewhere beautiful and serene with meditative music and just feel relaxed and take the stress out of your life. So we said, okay, do you have panoramic images you want to give us? And they said, no, we have no idea where to get them. So then we went down this whole rabbit hole of panoramic image licensing. And so we took them to Flickr first, and we said, we've got this amazing pool of equirectilinear panoramic images that our users have uploaded, which we can license for you. So if you guys want to upload your images to Flickr, I know it's not as enticing as Google, but we can actually, our Flickr team can actively license them for you and get you money. Unfortunately, JetBlue, the agency, did not find any images that matched their ad campaign, so then we sent them to 360 Cities, Jeffrey Martin and team, Bruce, and they thought the images were striking and beautiful, but they still didn't find any that matched their ad campaign. So we sent them to Getty Images, and again, they said, nope. And then we sent them to Shutterstock, and they said, wow, Shutterstock's got an amazing amount of images to choose from. They spent 2 weeks looking for them, and they actually did find 3 that they liked. Problem is they were only partial panoramas, so they were not out-of-the-box VR ready. So what we had to do, our team, is we took the partial panoramas and we filled in the missing data and recreated them into rectangular panoramic images that could be created a VR experience. And so this is the mobile ad unit. You'd come in and you'd have 3 different experiences you could go into. So, and you just kind of take a time off from your day and kind of serenely look around the beautiful, peaceful landscape and feel relaxed. And that was great and all, except that they also had this movie they wanted people to watch, and we put them up in the zenith of the sphere. Problem is with our data and analytics, is we found out that people don't look up that often. And so the tracking showed us that hardly anyone had played the video. And that was really a great insight, because that meant that on our next ad campaign, which was for Campbell's, we worked with BBDO in New York, the big ad agency, and we had a lot of things that we had learned from JetBlue experience to bring to the table here. So this was an interesting campaign because they had a really strict sort of style guide of the kitchen. They wanted this grungy looking kitchen. They wanted to sort of the name of the campaign was Real Life, right? Like we all really love Campbell's products. And so we searched all over Portland, Oregon. We found this dingy little kitchen. And we did, over the course of a weekend, it was raining outside. We put these big floodlights in the outside of the windows to make it look like it was sunny outside. And we shot over 80 plus panoramic images. So it was actually a custom photo shoot for BBDO. And then after going through, that's my lovely wife, after going through the images, we finally came to a final panorama that they loved. And then what was even more interesting is, we had used Panotour Pro for the initial Paramount demo, but now we actually had a team of developers that created this incredible user interface that can basically take a panorama and give you, within a few hours, you can actually put custom overlays, inbound video, animated GIFs. You can move and drag and drop logos anywhere. You can put hotspots. You can put tracking. You can build interaction. It's super fluid and it's super fast, and you can add data and tracking. So it was sort of like we went down this long journey until we found like the perfect tool that we could just sort of like publish this amazing mobile 360 panoramic content. And this is the final ad. You'd come on the phone and it would give you kind of a little icon to tell you to move the phone around. And then again, we had this conversation earlier, are panoramic still images still valid? Absolutely. And the reason we know this is because our data and tracking showed that we had a user engagement of 8.9%, and we had average time spent on the ad was 1 minute and 4 seconds for a panoramic still image. That completely blew away traditional ad advertising formats, and you've got some data on that.
Yeah, to put that into context, our typical engagement rate, that 8.9%, the benchmark is about 4%. So we had a 2x lift in engagement rate, which is really, really impressive. Most importantly, I think that it was time earned. We saw that the benchmark is about 13 seconds, and that's on a really good creative. Ours was 1:04. So we had about a 5x lift there. So to I believe it was your question earlier about are photos still a relevant medium with 360 video gaining popularity? Absolutely, 100%. And I think that this really kind of helps us validate that. So what we talked about so far, again, is content, data, delivery. So we showed you how through licensing, through producing a photo shoot, through figuring out how to mock up less than stellar images, we're able to help create the content side for our customers. Now we're looking at these insights with JetBlue and having the logo and the call to action at the top versus on the bottom or on the horizon line, and then getting these data points. Like we're starting to learn a lot more about how these creatives actually behave and what we should do to give best practices and guidance to make sure that people understand how to behave with these 360 images. We decided now we need to find a delivery mechanism for that. So some of you may have seen that our CRO was at Newfront and said that Yahoo's not in on VR, it's about video for us, live stream, 360 video, wasn't mentioned in there. The beauty of our ad creative tech team is that we are kind of the people who are trying to suss out ideas to see if there's demand and there's value for our clients. And so we had a great idea to say, okay, we want in on VR because our customers do want it, but we may not get the support of building a YouTube 360 channel or like Facebook to have these live content streams. We may not be able to build an app today outside of Flickr. We may not be able to have hardware or software or skin in that game. So we thought to ourselves, what is Yahoo the best at? And we really have a great advertising team. That's our bread and butter. So we thought, how do we use our advertising formats and tools and platform to help deliver this really cool content at scale? So I'm really excited to tease today a new mobile format that we're going to go to market with in the next few weeks that is really going to be a conduit for us to start getting this 360 imagery and video into the mobile user's hands on Yahoo. So introducing Mobile Tiles by Yahoo. And what this is, you can think of this as a post-tap mobile ad format that houses this really great content. So it's flexible, it's lightweight, and really, really conducive to providing great engagement with mobile advertisers on 360 imagery and video. So to give you an example of how that works, we'll look at this. This is a news feed from a Yahoo app. You tap on a native ad. A native ad is something that looks like sponsored content. You open it up, and what you're going to see here is what we're doing with 360 video. So this is actual footage Gavin and I took riding our Griffin this morning around Quebec City. It's magical.
If you looked up earlier, you probably saw us.
If you looked up, you saw us flying on this magnificent creature. No, so this is something we put together in a concept for Warcraft, but it marries sight, sound, motion. It takes the 360 imagery a step further, but you can see it lives in its own house post the tap on mobile content.
Yeah, and the idea too is that the interface we showed you earlier for static panoramic images, it's actually will be applied for 360 video as well. So a turnkey solution.
Absolutely. And so why does that matter? Why does Yahoo add value to this community who's been working so hard over the last 10 plus years? We really have a massive audience, reach and scale. That's really, really important. You know, Charles talked about, you know, where Street View went over the first 18 months. That's really, really powerful. Yahoo has over 200 mobile monthly users. To help put that in context, I think, Charles, was it 45 million over the first 18 months, that period? Gotcha. So we saw that massive boom, and so you see scale that Google has, that Facebook has. Now you can think about the scale that Yahoo has as well. And so it's really exciting for us to do this with this mobile product to help you guys get that content that you're hopefully using to create for advertisers and for brands to help educate them and distribute it at scale and get that work out there. Let people understand how they behave with this type of content and really get it out there to the different demographics that Yahoo has across its properties. You know, we have finance, sports, news, Tumblr, very different demographic groups. And so if they can all learn how to behave and we can take that data and learn how to work with it, we're in a much better place. So to go back to that concept, we need content, we need data, and we need delivery. So hopefully we showed you guys today a bit of what Yahoo's doing, how it can potentially help move the industry forward, and how it really can help you guys as the content creators get that work out there and educate our advertisers so that gap is bridged, because they're desperately asking for it, and we need the people who've been doing this the best and the longest to get them guided through that.
That's it. Do you guys want to take any questions, or do you want to just go party?
Oh, I think we've got
we got a question
in the back.
Thomas Sharpless. No?
So my question is, how do we make 360 imaging more social?
Well, I mean, we're exploring integrating basically, right now you've seen it in mobile ad experiences, but we're actually looking to rolling it out on all properties within Yahoo. And one of the most social properties on Yahoo is Tumblr, right? So I could certainly see you know, massive cross-posting of your 360 content. You know, in Tumblr, you can share things. They can just go viral. You've got one animated GIF, right? It's very simple. But imagine it's a 360 panoramic experience or a 360 video, and it just goes viral. I can see that being one.
And as of today, you can take the embed code from a YouTube video, a YouTube 360 video, and actually drop it into Tumblr, and it'll redirect from the YouTube channel.
Until Charles makes a phone call, and then it's
Yeah.
going to turn that feature off.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I actually do have a question. You talked about educating the public to appreciate 360 content. Does your Tiles app have any features built into it to educate the person who's never seen this before what they can expect to do with it?
So it's a great question. I want to make a first differentiation. So Tiles is not an app. It's an ad format that can work on mobile web or in Yahoo app. And so think of it as just a post tap. You tap on the ad and it takes it to a landing page. Tiles is essentially the structure that allows you to tell that story. And so hosting that 360 imagery and content. But to your point, if you looked at the Campbell's ad, we had that icon before the ad experience load that showed the user kind of moving the phone. So we're trying to build in simple iconography and simple gestures that people can understand quickly. And if you look at the example that we went through on the demo in stream, we're playing with ways to be able to show that that ad would be 360. So putting a 360 icon on it. When we did some of the iterations, you know, putting the VR cardboard, the headset icon on there. So we're finding ways that they're going to continue to test and iterate and see what actually works. But it's something we take very, very seriously. So yeah, education and simple ways to help draw learned behaviors from something as simple as an ad experience.
Yeah, I often think that the reason why we experts appreciate 360 panoramas much better than anybody else is that we've had a whole lot more practice interacting with it. And you don't realize how much you expect someone to intuit when you show them one of these things, unless you try showing it to them and they say, what kind of a movie is this? You know? So
Yeah.
I did want to ask, does it zoom? You do pinch zoom on those things?
Yeah, so we've got some prototypes for, I mean, one of the things that we didn't touch upon was that this isn't just, we're also looking for serving these experiences on the Yahoo homepage. What does the Yahoo homepage reach?
We have 43 million users a day.
Yeah,
and that's users, not impressions.
Yeah, and then some of the experiments we've done is, to your point, give you visual cues that it's a 360 experience. So when it first loads, it kind of moves a little bit, and then the visual cue appears and says, please interact with this ad. Click, drag, zoom, all those cues that our group is used to. So yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Oh, all set. Oh, one question.
Well, I think there's a lot of potential for putting Panoramic just as, that just the typical web page, there's that graphic block that you always see. It's really usually just a really big photograph cropped very wide. I find that unless I can find an embed code for something that I've put into Google Maps, that it's very difficult to embed a pano into just a typical web page. And I really feel like the web design community can really push panos a long way by making that easier to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, one of the things I would encourage you to do is just go to Flickr. As long as you have an equi-rectangular image, it's 2-to-1 ratio. As soon as you upload it to Flickr, the little interactive icon will appear. So it immediately knows. It's just Google does the same thing. I mean, they look at the ratio of the image, and it will switch to the interactive viewer, so it knows right away. So that makes it seamless. And then from there, you can literally embed right into like a Tumblr post. So yeah, there are streamlined ways of making it easier for everyone. Another question?
I'm just wondering, what kind of tools are you using just to track engagement? And that's
Sure.
the first question. And then the second question is, are your clients asking for the stats of engagement?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the interface you saw, where it was the cube face sort of deconstruction of the panorama, 6-sided square or cube unfolded. So we embed, there's inherent data that any kind of like little plugin that we drop in, like the video, for instance, it immediately comes with a huge, robust amount of data that will track. It'll track pause, play, time spent. We can add additional data, and then there's a whole separate section where we can actually build out customized data reports for our clients, and they can be volumes long. I mean, we usually we boil it down to a summary. But the more that you can, like for instance, sort of add one thing that I haven't heard anyone discuss yet is ability to track what the user has looked at, right? So I know there's some companies that are doing heat map engagement, but also just as basic as has the user looked at every possible part of the sphere, or have they limited their view to forward facing? We discovered that with the JetBlue example because we realized no one was looking up, because they were like, oh, it's a blue sky. I just assume it's a blue sky. I don't need to look up any further. So yeah, absolutely. Tracking is essential because data and analytics are what allow us to charge $200,000, $500,000 for a simple panoramic ad, because we can say, this ad performed wonderfully. You had 55 million viewers. You had this huge engagement rate. And we can guarantee, that we can deliver within that range, for your next ad experience. So it's the analytics are critical. It's part of that pyramid that Andrew showed.
And I want to add on to that. I came from Brightroll, which was a video programmatic platform for advertising. And our stance, before we were acquired by Yahoo, and our stance still is agnosticism. And so what we mean to do is work with anybody and everybody. So if there's third-party tracking that benefits our clients, we don't have to have the technology and build that out. We'll work with the experts who do. And so we'll work with, right now, third-party supply, or we had conversations this week with some heat mapping folks who were like, how do we get this going on more campaigns so not only we can understand these insights and give them back to our advertisers, but how do we share them back out with the community? Because that's how we drive it all forward. So if we don't have hardware, software on our end to open source and let people evolve, we can at least share the data and the insights that we have to make sure that everybody understands what we can and cannot do, or what we're doing that's working or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Ricky. Oh, it's Ricky's turn.
Hi, thanks. I was wondering how important do you think pre-roll video ads are going to be in 360?
I think, we've had this conversation. I think it's our duty to talk to advertisers to not just move a traditional mode of advertising into a new medium. What works on desktop and mobile may not work in a VR environment. So I think that's where people are going to immediately start to make the connection. They're going to go, oh, in between levels like we did on mobile, we can roll an ad. And okay, it's 360 video, there's probably nothing more that they do specific for it, but they can scale it. They can run it cross-device now, technically. They can run it on any channel on desktop or mobile, and now just plug it into VR. So advertisers are going to be very hungry for that, I think, immediately once the audiences come. And it's our job and our responsibility to make sure that that's not how they apply a best practice without even doing it, because it could potentially be a really, really bad experience. And we need to keep users first and top of mind.
Charles.
There was a comment a few minutes ago where somebody asked, how do we get this content to be more viral and social, and how do we help that get propagated amongst, embeds and that sort of thing? We're of the mindset, and it sounds like you guys are as well, that a rising tide raises all boats here, and we really, everybody, we're seeing this across Yahoo, Facebook, Google, everybody. We're pulling together to make sure this medium succeeds. I think one way that you all could help us is when you see like a website templating company that is supporting embeds of various types, make sure they support the Yahoo embeds and the Google embeds and everything else, and make some noise.
Absolutely.
Because the more there's visibility in that, the more that will really, I think, take hold with the broader audiences that we're trying to reach.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. The mentality I see from everybody trying to move the space forward is grow the pie so we all have a bigger share, not take the share from everybody else. And I think that's the mentality that helps us move forward, and that's why I think we're really excited to see that. And I mean, when you look at the basics of what advertisers want to do immediately, they go, oh, just put a Facebook button in the ad, then they can tap it, then they can share it, and then and it's like, whoa, hold on, no.
Yeah.
That's not how the user wants to behave and interact with it. So we have to educate them to say, do it this way, do it more organically in a way that people are actually it's gonna resonate with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also just to add to that, the agencies and the advertisers that have approached us, they want it done yesterday. They want a panoramic ad experience yesterday. They don't want to wait for ambisonic sound. They don't want to wait for stereoscopic 3D. They don't want to wait to be on the Oculus Rift or HTC Vive or the new headsets. They want it on the mobile devices that everyone has in their back pocket. I mean, the Google Cardboard was just phenomenal to kind of move that forward. And so what we're trying to do is engage with our advertisers to make that process easier, but we're also trying to engage with all the content creators and make it so they can get their imagery and their beautiful panoramas, into the system quickly and efficiently. So, that's part of that tool.
I think Jeremy had a really good point this morning. He said, what is good enough? And I don't think we know yet, but we need to set the bar as a group.
Yeah.
You got to figure out what good enough is, because sometimes advertisers are just quick to move, and that's not good enough.
Yeah, we don't want shit content, sorry, but we don't. We want it to be beautiful and compelling and move us forward. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and also for the Felix and Paul presentation, which was just amazing. Not everybody has, $1.5 million in 4 to 6 months to do a beautiful ad campaign. It's just not the reality of, they're kind of like the fine art of advertising. You have to sometimes start in other places. So it's important to keep your mind open in that regard. Yeah. Who would say? Dennis? Who was that? Oh, yeah. Send your twins to school.
Yeah.
To college. Cool. I think
Well,
that's it.
thank you, Gavin.
Sure.
Drew?
Yeah.